Have you ever heard of the wave of UFO sightings in the 1970s that was in the Dye-Fed Triangle? If you have heard this case before from somebody else, I promise you, I'm about to tell it in a way that has never been told. Also, thank you for coming back to Mystery Files and welcome to our weekly upload. Last Friday, it was a bit of a drag, so I thought I would switch it up to Saturday for this week. Oh, and also make sure to get this video up to 60 likes. I know y'all can do it. We've been lacking in the 40s lately, but this is the one that's gonna get back up to 60. I know it. So I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and while you're watching, please remember to try and find that hidden clue, and if you find it, put what it is with the timestamp in the comments to be entered into the giveaway. Okay, so without any further ado, as of now, it's time to slip into a mind that's not our own. Let's go. It was shaping up to be a perfectly ordinary spring day in the quaint seaside village of Broadhaven. Students at the local primary school poured into the courtyard for recess, and their laughter and shouts were filling the air. But young Dave Davies ended up joining a group of classmates kicking a football around, though his mind was often just wandering into the abyss. Gazing out past the schoolyard, Dave saw in the middle of the field behind him was full of sheep that were just meandering about, and he remembered his father grumbling that morning about needing to repair a hole in the fence separating their tiny farm from that field. And though he was only 10 years old, Dave was anxious to help his dad with the task of running their struggling operation. But then the shrill of a whistle snapped Dave back from his thoughts, and glancing around, he realized the playground had fallen strangely silent. The children were just all frozen in place, with their mouths open in awe, and they were looking at the field in front of them. And as Dave kind of followed the direction of their stare, he felt his blood literally turn to ice, because hovering about 30 feet in the air above the tree line was some sort of aircraft, the likes of which Dave had never seen. The silver, cigar-shaped craft was rounded at the front with a domed compartment perched on top. Plus, these strange symbols were etched along its smooth metallic hull. And Dave's skin prickled with these goosebumps as this enormous object drifted slowly across the horizon. And a few of the children screamed. Others muttered, what is this thing? As older kids tried to calm them down, Dave just watched, mouth open in awe. He always considered himself somewhat as a skeptic, someone who needed proof before believing such crazy claims. Yet here, right in front of his eyes, was something straight out of a sci-fi movie, and it looked awfully real. This is when the teachers then herded all the students back inside, insisting that they were just letting their imaginations run wild. But Dave knew exactly what he saw. None of the teachers believed the children, so the headmaster separated them and got them to draw what they saw. And even though there were slight, tiny variations, most of what they draw was basically the exact same thing. So what would that be if they didn't actually see it? A shared imagination? And all these kids weren't on like ayahuasca or anything, so how do you explain that? But later that day, as soon as the final bell rang for school, he raced from the building and sprinted towards the field just to take a closer look. So crouching in the grass near this scorched now circle of earth, Dave noticed something shimmering in the center of the burnt patch. It appeared to be this weird shard of metal, unlike anything that he ever knew to exist. Pocketing his interstellar souvenir, he gazed around anxiously before heading back home. Then over dinner that evening, Dave reluctantly described the odd craft to his parents. And his father, chuckled while his mother shot him a worried glance. "You kids gotta stop reading so many crazy comics," his father said. "Now eat up before your food gets cold." And Dave said okay in his head, and he just kept quiet after that, turning the glittery shard over in his pocket. Why did none of the adults believe him? And in the weeks that followed, Dave noticed this unease growing in his village. Normally a lively, welcoming place, his hometown had taken on a subdued and suspicious air. This school sighting was just the first in this rash of bizarre sightings. There were hushed rumors of missing livestock and eerie glows in the night sky. Not to mention, 2 months later, Rosa Granville, who ran the Haven Fort Hotel in nearby Little Haven, described seeing an object which looked like an upside-down saucer and 2 faceless humanoid creatures with pointed heads. Now, I've heard of this pointed heads thing before with UFOs and extraterrestrials, and I just want to say from my personal experience of what I have read, I believe it's actually some sort of helmet or crown that they are wearing, but maybe they really did have pointed heads. Plus, she said that so much heat was coming off this thing that her face felt burnt. Their chilling appearance and the scorched earth left in the wake sparked whispered tales of alien visitors with sinister intentions. And Dave was just watching this whole time the whole thing played out. And he could see the growing tension with curiosity and concern. He listened intimately to his classmates as they eagerly swapped stories, while skeptical parents and teachers, just brushed it off as these childish tales. And he kept his little glittering shard tucked away in his sock drawer, pulling it out at night to examine it by flashlight the nights that he couldn't fall asleep. Try as he might to make sense of the strange happenings going on in his town, Dave felt certain things would only continue spiraling. And as feared over subsequent months, apprehension gave way to hysteria as more residents reported unsettling sightings. And Dave noted the burgeoning crowds of journalists and UFO enthusiasts flocking to the once secluded seaside community, and his parents at the time just shook their heads at the excited chatter, refusing to buy into the utter nonsense. But Dave felt that too many ordinary townsfolk with nothing to gain were sharing chillingly aligning accounts. Why would they fabricate such elaborate tales if not to make sense of things they truly witnessed together? And their frightened testimonies painted a picture of otherworldly visitors creeping through the night, unleashing these strange lights, sounds, and symbols meant to disorient and instill fear. And he had an unshakable feeling extraterrestrial beings were afoot, though to what end he could not even begin to imagine. And by summertime, Broadhaven had erupted into full chaos. Outsiders swarmed the streets, turning the village into a sideshow spectacle and further unsettling its rattled residents. Plus, these wild theories now ran rampant, like that the beings were scouts plotting an invasion, or the military testing these experimental technology on unsuspecting citizens, or an elaborate prank by students from a local college. But Dave struggled to reconcile the terror he saw etched across the faces of his family, friends, and neighbors with any casual explanation. Why would scores of solid, sensible people along this unassuming stretch of Welsh coast invent such elaborate lies? And who or what was meticulously orchestrating this elaborate ruse? Now, Dave felt certain what lurked beneath that morning furor lay unsettling truths he desperately needed to uncover. And then as one chaotic summer faded into the next, the commotion eventually died down and a tenuous calm settled back over the town. most outsiders drifted away in search of the next viral sensation. And there were a few sporadic sightings that still emerged here or there, which Dave dutifully logged and analyzed. But for a while it seemed the inexplicable siege had finally ceased. And yet decades later, long after Dave had now grown up and now moved across the country with his own family, Broadhaven held its breath in uneasy anticipation, because its unlucky residents knew that whatever sinister force had darkened their doorsteps might someday return. Once their guard was down and the hubbub had fully died away. And when that day came, Dave didn't know if answers or just deeper terror would emerge. But having witnessed unimaginable things drift across that field decades ago as a young boy, he knew that for Broadhaven, life would never be the same. And at the end of the day, this was one of those stories where if you thought it was just children and their crazy imaginations, you would be wrong. Because in this particular story, you can take all the children out of the story, and yet you still have the story. Some of you might have heard of the Broadhaven UFO sightings before, but I just wanted to tell it to you in a different way, and I hope you really enjoyed it. Also, I got a lot of interesting things that will be coming out soon, so I hope you stick around with us, and if you haven't already, please like this video, and that's all I have for you guys today. Cheers.
Well, I saw the spaceship. I didn't see the man. The spaceship, it looked a cigar shape with a dome on it, and it had a yellowy, orange to red light on the top of it.
How clearly did you see it?
Well, I couldn't see its face because it was too far away.
Oh, you say you saw a man as well, did you?
Yes.
And what about him?
Well, he was too far away to be seen as well.
My friend Philip here was trying to find a way over the stream, and I was looking at the bushes up the top of the trees. And then suddenly this silver cigar-shaped object seemed to pop up from behind the bushes and trying to take off. Then it disappeared again.